duties at the Synod of Bishops include being the Vice Chairman of the Synod Youth Department. The Synod Youth Department was established 6 years ago, at which 6 years ago in San Francisco there was the fourth All Diaspora Council. And the two topics at the All Diaspora Council were primarily the first one being reconciliation in the Russian Church, and the second topic had to do with youth and the pastoral concerns of the church abroad in pastoral work with the youth. And after that council, the bishops were blessed to have a youth department established at the Synod, which includes priests and representatives from other dioceses that all work together in order to develop programs in different dioceses in the church abroad. We try to work together, assist each other, help set up programs that are in Australia or Canada, Europe, America. The scope is on a global basis, and that being said, the programs that we develop have to include all or as many of the dioceses we can. Next. Our programs that we developed with our staff, Father Boris is a member of the Synod Youth Department. We have Father Ilya from Germany. We have Father Gabriel Makarov in Australia. We all met together and developed programs that would assist and help all the dioceses. And as you can see, we have them categorized in these different forms. First most, of course, important is prayer services, how to unite the youth around prayer services. That, of course, is the center focus of our life, is prayer, liturgy, and the services. Secondly, we have missionary volunteer work, programs that were developed to encourage you, the youth, to give part of yourself to someone else, to give your efforts, your love, your work. Pilgrimages are also a very important part of who we are. It's a time to pray, a time to unite with other youth, a time to be able to see other parts of the world. We have educational programs such as symposiums, such as presentations and lectures, and some of them which you, the youth, actually participated. The time has passed when we just sit around and sit in a hall all day for a whole week and just listen to lectures. So we've developed youth-friendly educational programs. And lastly, as you see up on the screen, cultural and social, which includes social media. It includes culture and events such as even balls and all sorts of social events to unite the youth. Here you see a picture of one of our services that we held at the Sretinsky Monastery. As Father Boris mentioned, we're developing more and more programs for the youth to participate in Russia. The whole point was that this year we're celebrating our 5th anniversary of the reconciliation of the Russian Orthodox Church. And so in those 5 years, we've tried to develop programs to allow the youth to travel abroad to Russia, to meet up with other Orthodox peers. And some of those programs include meeting up with youth in Russia. Here we have a Moleben at the Sretinsky Monastery with the blessing of Archimandrite Tikhon. We were able to serve a Moleben in front of the relics of Saint Hilarion. Saint Hilarion was a new martyr who lived and was persecuted at the Solovetsky Monastery. Solovetsky Monastery is a small little island on the very edge, north edge of Russia, almost at the point where the Arctic Circle meets. And so prior to traveling to Solovki, we stopped at the monastery and served a Moleben to Saint Hilarion. As you see, our youth gathered there for the Moleben. Next one, please. In addition, of course, to the services, the Molebens, of course, liturgies are very important. It's important to try to give you as much access and possibility to the services, to the liturgies in Russia, and to, of course, encourage the main focus of preparing and to receive Holy Communion. That's our focal point of these trips that we take. Each trip has its own theme, its own celebration, but the center of all of this, of course, is the liturgy. And so here we have someone going to confession right before the beginning of liturgy at Butova. Butova is a field right outside of Moscow where thousands and thousands of clergy, laity were killed, were martyred at this field. And we had the special opportunity to participate in a liturgy there that was held by Patriarch Kirill. It was outside. There were 50 bishops and about 200 priests that all participated, and thank God our youth was able to also participate in the liturgy as well. Next one. This is another liturgy that we participated in, that youth took Holy Communion. This was at the Church of St. Nicholas. It's a church that's associated with the St. Tikhon's Orthodox University. I know that we actually have a student who goes to an Orthodox university here at Lisa Kotter, right? In San Diego, there's an Orthodox university. But in Moscow as well, there's a very prominent Orthodox university, St. Tikhon's. It just celebrated its 20th anniversary. And so at one of these programs, we were able to come and visit the students there and spend time with getting to know the students of this Orthodox university. Next one, please. This was a special treat for us that we were able to get a blessing from Patriarch Kirill, and this was a trip that we took to Moscow also. And at this liturgy, Patriarch Kirill consecrated a new bishop. How many of you have ever seen a consecration of a bishop? Okay. It's rare here, anyways. In Moscow, of course, it's done more often. But at this liturgy, there were over 100 bishops, and it was a consecration of a new bishop. So it's an interesting way for the youth to see life growing in the church, in the Orthodox Church. To be witnesses to such an event is a special blessing. And after the liturgy, Patriarch Kirill graciously invited us to meet with him, and our youth met with him, got little presents, icons from him, and a blessing, and he gave us a warm welcome. As I mentioned, some of our work in the missionary volunteer aspect, one of those programs that we try to encourage is rebuilding, restoration of churches. And 2 years ago, we had the opportunity to go to Solovetsky Monastery, as I mentioned earlier, and it was a group of 18 of us that went up to the monastery. You have to imagine that this north extreme of Russia that has pretty much in July 23 hours of daylight for a month. So the surroundings are harsh. A lot of mosquitoes. It's a desolate area, but it's also a very beautiful area. And you can imagine what a fortress of a monastery that you see in the pictures here that was unfortunately desecrated and ruined, destroyed. And surrounding the Solovetsky Monastery are hundreds of little islands in that area. And on those islands, the monks would escape and live in these little shelters, these houses which they made into chapels and churches as well. And so we spent 2 weeks up there working, restoring, rebuilding, exploring as well the different islands. One of the islands, we were told that even the Mother of God had appeared at one of the churches centuries ago. So it's a very incredible opportunity, not only to give to restoring and volunteer, but you also get a blessing in return. So, this is some of the work that we actually did, the hard labor work that we did at the Solovetsky Monastery. You see, we chopped firewood. That's how they would heat their building. There's you see those piles of wood over there. And basically we helped the monks there for the 2 weeks. We chopped firewood, we stacked firewood. There's the next one here. See, the boys chopped firewood, the girls stacked the firewood, and see the huge piles in the background there. And that's for the winter. So in the summertime, they need to use their time wisely there at the Solovetsky Monastery and gather as much as they can to hold out for the winter.
Summer's about a month.
Yeah, that's that month, 23 hours of daylight. This is also some volunteer work that we did in the Kursk area, which is a little south. It's about 10 hours south of Moscow. We did volunteer work there at a monastery, which, as you see, is it's not all roses, you know. It's collecting hay and cleaning up in a barnyard. Like I mentioned, all of this is very important because it helps to develop you as Orthodox Christians, giving a part of yourself, giving your efforts and work for someone else, and that's what the gospel tells us that we're called to do, to live for others, not just for ourselves. Some of the programs that we also have developed have to do in the social services aspect of volunteer work. Here we have a meeting with Bishop Panteleimon, who is the president of the social welfare department of the Moscow Patriarchate. The church has its own social welfare department to help the needy, to feed the poor, and at one of our meetings here, we met up with Vladika Panteleimon just to introduce ourselves, to hopefully develop future programs, which we did after this meeting. It's interesting because they're also interested in what kind of social services volunteer work we do here. And that becomes very tricky to answer sometimes. And we hardly ever have these programs of going out and feeding the homeless and helping out and reflecting on those questions that Vladika posed. It's true that we don't, but most of our efforts in living in the church abroad have always been concentrated on just preserving what we have, preserving our churches, building churches, and so all of this that now is pretty much settled. It's important for us now to open up other horizons of social welfare and social volunteer work here in America in an Orthodox setting. And so one of the programs that we developed with Vladika Panteleimon was the opportunity for our youth to come back. This is another group. Several months later, we participated in a social welfare program that the Moscow Patriarchate has, visiting elderly in the hospitals. This is a hospital that we went with. Vladika Feodosy went with us. We visited the elderly. Vladika would anoint the elderly with oil from the lampada from St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. We would sing prayers. We would talk to them, interact, and that's the extent of the work that they really want from us. The elderly just want someone to talk to. So we did a lot of that. We did a lot of listening and singing for them. Next one, please. This is also an interesting aspect of the social welfare department that we participated in. This is a bus that drives around and helps the homeless in Moscow. In the wintertime, the bus just drives around at night and collects homeless that are freezing to death on the streets and gives them shelter in the bus. And the bus just drives around all around Moscow all night, and in the morning lets the homeless back out. So at least they don't freeze to death. From what I understand, just recently the weather in Moscow was minus 25 Fahrenheit. So it gets a bit cold there in the winter times. But this bus that was developed by the social welfare department, and now there are many others like this with the support of the Russian government that just drive around and help. In the summertime and springtime, they're full of supplies that they help the homeless with, and our youth was able to participate in this, help out a little bit, and get a better understanding of what the work entails. Next one, please. Educational forums also, of course, are a very important part of the programs that we develop. Symposiums and lectures and talks, spiritual talks. Here we have a symposium at the Synod. We've already been having youth symposiums at the Synod for the past 5 years, and this is in honor of St. John of Kronstadt. It was his 100th anniversary of his repose 3 years ago, and so we had a special forum on the theme of St. John of Kronstadt. We had some discussions, talks, lectures throughout the day. Just this past October in the Synod, we had one that was music-based forum, and the youth was able to have workshops on music, and then they sang liturgy, and all of this was in conjunction with a very special choir that came out to visit, the Sretinsky choir. So the youth was able to interact with the members of the Sretinsky choir, and at the same time, the next day, they were able to sing liturgy. And educational forums also in Russia that we participate in. Here we're at the Moscow State University, where we participated in a symposium explaining to the students what Orthodox life is about here in America. And our youth made these PowerPoint presentations. They gave their talks, some of them in Russian, some of them in English with Russian translators. And as you see, there was a group of over 100 students there from the Moscow State University. And they even though it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes to get up in front of an audience, but with right preparation and timing and everything, it's something that's important, and you'll feel more at ease with practice. This is a conference that we participated in. It's a pro-life conference, an Orthodox pro-life conference, and this was held in the center of Moscow. We went out there with Vladika Feodosy. What's interesting is that the last day of the conference, one of the participants who was already past due, over 9 months pregnant, decided it was already time, and Vladika Feodosy was asked to baptize the child, but they put it off for a later time. But these conferences that we participate in, we try to find special sponsorship for them. They're covered financially by donors, by organizations, by foundations. Sometimes even airfare is completely covered for these programs. This specific program, we stayed a week in Moscow, and everything was covered. All your expenses were paid for. And we combined that trip with a trip to Ekaterinburg. Who's heard of Ekaterinburg? Does anybody know what Ekaterinburg is? Who could yell out what's so special about Ekaterinburg? Okay, please. Right. Exactly. Thank you. And this year we're celebrating the 50th year anniversary of the reconciliation. And what's important is to remember what united us spiritually together as the holy martyrs, the holy royal martyrs. So that being said, we tried to combine this trip to Moscow, this special anniversary year with a trip to Ekaterinburg. We found donors that helped us with airfare from Moscow to Ekaterinburg. That's roughly a 2.5-hour flight from Moscow. Spent a few days there at the site of the martyrdom of the Holy Royal Family. So the youth was able to get a little better feel spiritually of the understanding of what the reconciliation means. Our biggest event that took place last year, and it was the 12th All Diaspora Youth Conference in Paris. Maybe some of you heard about it. If you heard of it, really, you didn't hear about it. Nobody heard of it. Well, some people that went to it. I know there were some people. All diaspora youth conferences are like St. Herman's, but on caffeine. It's just a huge, huge event. It's 150 participants. We chose Paris because it's never been done in Europe. It's a tradition that's been going on for 30 years now, and it happens every 4 to 5 years, a youth conference where youth from all over the world participate. Here we have mainly just the Western American diocese gathered today at the St. Herman's. But in the all diaspora youth conferences, we include youth from all the different dioceses. And last year's was significant because it also included youth from Russia, different youth. So we chose Paris. It was a beautiful location, and but in addition to this wonderful event in this great city, the youth were developing programs themselves. So these programs that the Synod Youth Department is developing and developed is actually with the work of the youth, and that's a very important key for us to grow, is to have you participate in developing programs that are of your interest, with the guidance, of course, of the church. And so there were many programs that were developed, missionary programs, programs for getting to know the youth, different. Next one, please. As you see, we had these workshops. We would have lectures in the morning, and then before lunch, we would break up the youth. 150 people were broken up into groups of 10. Most of them didn't know each other, and they had to come up with a theme, a topic of some sort of program that they then had to present to a panel. The panel was a representation of, say, a foundation that would help sponsor such a program. So they really had to try to sell it to them. By the end of the week, we had several interesting programs developed, and we're actually using those programs now. We're trying to encourage other dioceses as well to use these programs that you, the youth, came up with yourselves. Here we have one of our guest speakers, Отец Irenei, gave a wonderful talk. Next one, please. That's the pilgrimage that I mentioned. We're taking different pilgrimages to Ekaterinburg that we went to. This is a statue on the spot. It's called Ganina Yama. It's a place where they discarded the Holy Royal Martyrs, and these shaft-like holes And it's a very, very solemn and even eerie place, but it really spiritually awakens you to so we had a special blessing to be there. This is a large pilgrimage that we took 5 years ago, just as the Synod Youth Department was established. And this was to the Holy Land. It was 100 youth from 10 different countries that spent 2.5 weeks together on a pilgrimage. We started off in Egypt, and the theme of the pilgrimage was called by the footsteps of Moses. So we started in Egypt. We walked up Mount Sinai, up to the top. We spent time in the desert. And from there, we proceeded to the Holy Land. And this is at the entrance of the tomb of our Lord, where we had a nighttime liturgy where the youth sang the liturgy, a midnight service, and it literally felt like Pascha in July. It was a very incredible experience. Social media is an important aspect to our work as well. Why don't I just ask a question? Who here has a Facebook page? Yeah, it's the connection that you have with other people. It's very important, and so the Synod Department developed a Synod Youth Facebook page where we post events, programs, and if I could please ask all of you to take note of this, to please find this Synod Youth Facebook page and try to participate in it. We post all of our announcements for programs on it. There's over 200 youth from all over the world that participate in this page. And once I announce something, then people start signing up right away. So it's a good media. It's good for you if you have questions you want to ask, post questions. We could have. I don't have too many clergy on it, but certainly questions can be posed, and you would get answers if you have any. Also, as you see next to the picture of the Synod Facebook page, we've also developed a Synod YouTube page channel. It's called Synod Youth Tube. It's all one word. It's also, please take note of that, look that up, Synod Youth Tube, one word. And there we post videos of homilies, of events, of programs. This St. Herman's conference that's been taped the last couple of days will also be connected to the Synod Youth Tube. And the one that's on the East Coast is also being taped, and it's a way for you to interact with youth, to see what other youth are doing all over the world. So please try to look that up, Synod Youth Tube. As Tis Boris mentioned, the Synod Youth Department has been working to develop a book on youth work and the experience of youth work, and it's a project that I put some effort into, and unfortunately right now it's only in Russian. But we hope to develop it in English as well and have it printed sometime in the future in English. And there are talks about the history of youth work in Russian Church abroad, right from the beginning of pre-revolutionary and after. And also some of those programs that the youth developed at the different conferences, a lot of photographs, and also essays. These programs that I mentioned and these trips that we take, I asked that the youth write essays prior to the trip of what your expectations are, what you think you'll see there, and also essays after the trip. I've collected a number of these essays, and we're able to put them into the book as well. These are personal accounts that the youth wrote about these programs and their experiences and their trips and stuff. I really would like to kind of open this up to some questions for possible interests of future programs and things that you would like to see come alive. Maybe it's a trip, maybe it's a pilgrimage, maybe it's just in those categories that we mentioned that we work in. Could I ask somebody, maybe you could go around the table here, start with this table. Do you have any thoughts, ideas? Yeah, right here, your table. Start right there. Please stand up and say your name, so who you're from, where you're from. And
James Olmsky from Sacramento. Do we have any outreach in the United States? Like, what if we did something like what you're doing in Russia, in America? Because I know, like, the Greek Orthodox Church and the OCA, they have stuff like that. So, do we have anything like that here in America?
It's a very good question, and it's very important for us to do that. One of the principal theories of developing these programs and us going to Russia is to use as an example when we come back here to develop these same type of things. I am currently on the committee of the Canonical Bishops' Youth Committee, and we are developing with them as well these kind of possible programs. But all of these programs can be started on a parish level. And I think that's what is important, is that when you come back from such a program where you see people developing and doing these things in Russia and participating with them, to come back on a parish level and to also take the initiative to start these things as well. On a broad scale, it's being worked, and I think you'll be able to see that developed more on a broad scale with this Facebook page. But it's very important, you as youth, to take that initiative. You can even start it on a parish level. You know, you can start a food drive for your local area and with your parish, just with 2 or 3 people together collecting food cans, which, for example, I know when the Sandy hurricane hit, there were parishes that were doing that as well. So I think it's important to have it on a grand scale level, which it's being developed, but also to have the youth, to take the initiative to do it on a local parish level as well.
If I could follow up on that particular point, and I think today hit on something very, very important, is that, you know, when you consider, you know, parishes like this, and so that's just celebrated an 80th anniversary, it wasn't started by the synod. It wasn't started by some decree from above. It was started by a group of parishioners who got together and said, we want to build a church. And that's true in virtually every one of our parishes. Just recently, Father Andrei mentions the whole idea of starting at a parish level. Just last year in Santa Rosa, we developed a stewardship program. And one of the things we have done, and particularly we did this through our sisterhood, because charitable outreach is an important part of what we do. Father Andrei mentioned something very important here, that in these generations over the years, it took us so much time and effort just to simply get our parishes established and kind of survive. But as you said, and properly so, we're past that point now. Your generations now are settled here. The church abroad, has completed its initial charter of maintaining the sanctity of our Orthodox faith for a future-free Russia. Well, that future is now. Russia is free, and as you've seen through Father Andrei's presentation, that there have been symposia, the church is very involved there in Russia and so forth, taking care of all sorts of things. So the thing is, if you do start in your own parish, you all have old folks living in your parishes, a lot of them who are lock-ins, who can't get to church, who have no way of driving there, people who want to be visited right now during Christmas time. This is something Archbishop Anthony did with us when we were younger in San Francisco. On the second day of Christmas, we would all take off to the St. John of Darmstadt Convalescent Hospital in Castro Valley with our youth choirs, and we would prepare little presents, and we would go from room to room. We would have a Christmas service, then we'd go to room, we'd sing Christmas carols, we'd distribute little presents. I mean, nothing fancy. But the old folks don't need anything fancy. They need you. They need you to come and say, hi, nice to see you. God bless you on Christmas. I have a little gift for you. Sing them a Christmas carol. And not just during Christmas time alone, it's a good start, but during the rest of the year. 2 or 3 of you can get together and say, hey guys, this weekend, let's go visit these people. All right? Let's go, bring them something or whatever. Bake them a pirog or something like that. And just visit. You've got old people who are in hospitals, convalescent homes, and so forth, who don't see people for months. And the thing is, and you can do this. It doesn't take a huge effort. Just to go out there and visit, talk to them in Russian. A lot of these people are in American convalescent hospitals. They don't speak Russian there. Just to hear their native language would mean the world to them. So again, thanks to just Andrei to mention this again, on a very local parish level, it merely takes your initiative to get up and do this. And say, okay guys, once a month we're going to go out and visit folks. Let's find out who needs to be driven to church. We have lock-ins, we have people like that. Call them. Marivana, Christmas is coming up. Do you have a way to get to church? If you can't make it on the first day, Father Paul has service on the second day of church. It's a little bit calmer then. Can we pick you up and bring you to church? You can have confession, Holy Communion. This would be invaluable. And we have them within our own parishes. So, again, the idea of maybe going out on the streets of San Francisco or something like that, maybe a little bit beyond what we can do here in America, but we certainly can do it within our parishes, because we've got folks all over the place who have at least that very minor need. Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it doesn't even have to be through parishes, because you can go to the hospital and sign up for a volunteer program, and there's a lot of volunteer youth programs within the city too, that you can help out with the youth.
Get 2 or 3 people from your parish to participate. I mean, all of this takes the initiative that you will have the support of your parish priest, you will have the support of the synod to develop other programs on a large scale, but grassroots level is also very, very important. Could I direct my attention to the table over there? Maybe you have comments, thoughts, ideas right there. Yeah. Go ahead. Стань, пожалуйста, скажи свое имя, кто.
Кирилл, значит, хотел спросить, а в России есть возможность встретиться с отцом Андреем Кураевым и профессором Алексеем Осиповым в этой группе?
Конечно, это возможно. Kirill has asked if it's possible to meet up with a prominent missionary worker, Deacon Andrei Kurayev and Professor Osipov. Certainly the possibilities are there. Of course they are. It takes some developing, and we've been to youth forums. Отец Boris and I went to a youth forum where Отец Andrei Kurayev was speaking at. We've developed, we've had those already, and we wish to continue those type of things. Certainly we don't meet up just with youth. We meet up with, which of course is the main thing, to meet up with youth, but we also meet up with educated professors and missionary prominence in Russia. So yes, we have and we will continue.
What you mentioned тоже, the St. Tikhon's at the university тоже, the
Yes.
possibility of maybe doing some sort of student work there?
We hope to do, we've already developed programs with the St. Tikhon's Orthodox University, and we hope to continue it, maybe to have a program next year also, maybe to Solovki, to work with the students. It's very incredible to be able to work with, to bond and to make contacts with other Orthodox college-age students. Does anybody at that table have any thoughts, ideas of a trip maybe? Pilgrimage? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Simeon and the idea I had for even a pilgrimage, but what about this one right here? Can we basically maybe for the St. Herman's Conference, like next year, if we had the idea of maybe going to a hospital, or if we as a group did something like that, we had an event where we went out and did something, I think that'd be a good idea. Because it'd be easier, I think, if we were led by a priest or someone of the clergy to go and do this, because it's hard for people our age, I think, to be willing enough to go out and do this, you know, this way.
I think that's a very good point directed to the organizing committee of the St. Herman's for next year. I remember growing up in California that we would actually go and sing Christmas carols on Christmas Eve at hospitals on Western Christmas, which is this time of the year during the St. Herman's Conference, to the sick and to the elderly. We actually did that with our youth leaders. So I think that's a very valid point and very good to direct towards the organizing committee for next year. Before I conclude, I specifically wanted to thank the organizing committee of St. Herman's Youth Conference West, Father Boris and Father Alexander, Father Paul, Father David, all the deacons, Father Serge, Father Ireniev, for participating this year. This is a big honor, and I'm very happy to participate in this St. Herman's Conference. I'd like to also thank Father Alexei Kotar for being such a great host. Please give them all a round of applause. Thank you.